with the National Guard until December, and when I went to Carlisle, the U.S. Army War College. So my real job as a warrant officer is administration. I type, I write policy, I do that sort of thing. The sexual assault response coordinator came open in, I think it was October of 2012. And I just felt like, having gone to nursing school, even though I didn't graduate, I felt that that would be a good position for me as someone who's compassionate, wants to help people, and cares. So I took the position. I really, really enjoyed the position. And then when the Army War College opened, I applied for that to move on to something else, because the Army started the sexual assault response program in 2005. So it's kind of an old program when it comes to Army, but like all programs, they continued to develop it and then kind of got it where it is today, which is really leading the nation in sexual assault programs. You probably see on the news about colleges now, incidents that happen at college campuses, and they're starting to get on board, but it was really the Army in the beginning that started putting procedures and processes into place to help victims. So, 2005 it started, and one of the reasons I chose to leave Fort Indiantown Gap was because I felt almost like I had brought that program full circle. In the Army on active duty, I actually knew somebody who was sexually assaulted, and that was in 1996. We didn't have a program, and it was a male on male. And that was the only case that I knew of when we were on active duty, but we had nowhere to go. We didn't know where to go. I remember him coming to me and saying, you know, what should I do? But I really didn't know what to tell him because we did not have a program at that time. So we started with setting reporting procedures into place. How do victims report it? So we got them to report, but then we found that there were all kinds of secondary issues that were coming up. Unit members would take sides. You know, some people would take the side of the victim, other people would take the side of the alleged offender. There wasn't really a judicial system in place for it. Still today, most cases that are investigated by local law enforcement, a lot of them don't make it to trial. A lot of sexual assaults involve alcohol. So sometimes if police officers go to investigate those cases, they kind of come up with, well, it's a he said, she said. And because there's alcohol involved and that kind of vagueness to the report exists, they just don't have enough information to take it to trial. And so when the Army realized this was happening, then they put procedures in place through the Army that said, hey, listen, even though civilian police officers can't do much about this, let's put something in place so that we can do something about it here at the Army. So a lot of times, even when it won't go to trial, say you have, and in a lot of cases it happens like a sergeant, someone who is supposed to be respected, and someone who's supposed to be leading the example for other people, that person might be the alleged offender. And so even though it didn't go to trial and there wasn't a guilty verdict and nothing could happen, there are systems in place in the military that say, hey, wait, he shouldn't have been drinking anyway because he's supposed to be a leader. And so then they can do other things. They can take rank away. They can separate people. Most of the people that we had, most of the cases that we had while I was at the National Guard, there was not one where something did not happen to the alleged offender. And most of the time they were separated. So since 2005, we have come a long, long way in processing them. Now that's the alleged offender side. But what my position really is to take care of victims. So when victims come to me and they report, I put them in touch with resources. I give them resources. I give them, you know, you have a sexual assault Center right here in Lebanon. I worked very closely with them. They do free counseling for anybody. A lot of people who are sexually assaulted in the military, they don't want the military to know. They may never come to me to report, but knowing that there's help out there for free can help them, because they can go to a counseling center, get the help they need, not have to pay for it, and nobody in the military knows about it. And sometimes people just want that confidentiality. They just don't want people to know. If you look at statistics for sexual assault, they're pretty astounding. Can anybody in here tell me one out of how many females will be sexually assaulted?
4?
It's 4. Who said that? It's 4. 1 in 4. So 1 in how many males will be sexually assaulted? 6. 1 in 6. So you're talking about a very large population of people who are sexually assaulted. And there are a couple reasons it keeps happening. And really, one of them is because people don't want to report. The DOD, the Department of Defense, did a survey in 2012 to try to find out how many people were sexually assaulted before they even joined the military, because there was a spotlight shown on the military with sexual assaults. But see, the problem is not really in the military. The military recruits from society. So there's a problem in society that is not being taken care of. There were some incidents in the Army that could have been handled better, but when DOD did the survey, they found that 30% of enlistees were sexually assaulted before they joined the military. And statistics show that anyone who was sexually assaulted as a child has a bigger chance of being sexually assaulted as an adult as well. We have this program that we can use where you do an anonymous survey. So if I was doing that in here, I would give each person a clicker. And on my PowerPoint would be questions. And one of the questions we would ask the audience is, were you ever sexually assaulted? And every time we did that survey, anywhere from 20 to 25% of the people would say yes. So there is definitely a population of people out there who have been sexually assaulted who never told anybody. And as kids, there are I do a lot of articles, and today I was thinking I wish I would have printed out the last article that I wrote for a newsletter that we have down at Carlisle. But it's on grooming, and it's about why children don't come forward and even tell parents that they were sexually assaulted. But it's called grooming, and it's kind of a little bit too much to get into here. But I feel like right now we are really getting somewhere. There are a lot of people involved in trying to get sexual assault and domestic violence out in the open, and try to let people understand that there's help out there, that there are a lot of people who care, and that there are a lot of people who will listen to them. And so part of my program is just that. Not only taking care of people who come to me and report, but also letting people know through my briefs that I do that even if you don't report, there are so many resources out there for you. So I feel like right now we're really starting to kind of ramp up all the resources that we have for sexual assault victims. We would take what we know now and start it with children of today. We can get this under control. And a lot of it is holding people accountable. And in the Army, like I said, we have a great way to hold people accountable, even though the civilian judicial system does not, just because a lot of times you figure we rely on juries, right? If something goes to trial, a jury has to believe beyond a reasonable doubt that something happened, and a lot of times that's not easy to prove when it comes to sexual assault. And that's part of the Army's training, is bystander intervention, because a lot of times, in fact, almost every case that I can think of that happened in the Army when I was at Fort Indiantown Gap, there were people who saw what was happening. Not necessarily saw the assault, but saw things that were leading up to a bad situation and didn't do anything. So a lot of times, a very big population of sexual assaults occur in the 18 to 24 year, college. Drinking. In the Army, for instance, almost all of our cases occurred when there was alcohol. I think out of 16 individuals, 14 of them were drinking alcohol when the incident occurred. And they call alcohol really the weapon of choice for that age group. Most sexual assaults are not violent. Most sexual assaults are not done by strangers who jump out of a bush at somebody. Most of them occur between people who know each other. About 75 to 80% are between people who know each other. So they gain somebody's trust, and then they might go out, have a few drinks, they might be feeding this person drinks, and then all of a sudden something bad happens. And that's exactly how the incident happened when I was on active duty with the 2 males. College is very well known for punch bowls at fraternity parties. I always thought that was a myth. You know, my mom, who always told me and still tells me, even at 45, that, you know, never leave your drink alone. You know, if you go out, don't leave your drink alone. All of those things when you're in college, you say, oh, you know. And then you grow up and you have kids of your own who are just about to go to college, and you're like, you know what, my mother was right about every single thing she told me. Because that punch bowl exists. A friend of mine, her son went to a college party. My son's not in college yet, pretty soon, but he went to a party and they had a punch bowl and he started fixing himself a cup, and they told him no, that was for the girls, because they spike it. And it gets the girls so intoxicated that then they can take advantage of them. And see, girls, you know, one of the things that prevents people from reporting, even as children, whether they're children, whether they're college students, one of the main reasons people don't report is because somehow, in some way, the person who violated them made them feel somewhat responsible for it. So if I'm at a party and I got drunk and I went back to his room, not expecting anything, I was just intoxicated, and this happened to me, of course I'm going to say, why did I do that? Why did I allow myself to drink that much? Why did I go back to this? You know, why? And victims always blame themselves. And so one of the reasons they don't report is because they are taking responsibility for something they really shouldn't be taking responsibility for. If I'm, you know, instructing law enforcement, whoever, you never ever ask a victim questions like, why were you drinking so much? Why did you go back to this place so late? Why did you wear that short skirt? You know, why do you dress like that? All of those things that people don't really know better not to say because they just come out so easy for people. All of those questions people ask, blame the victim. I don't want to talk about it anymore because the first reactions they got were blaming them. When other people see that, when other people see that people are blaming them, they're not going to come forward either. It's very important that we teach people that no matter what a person does, no matter what a person wears, no matter how much a person drinks, it never gives anyone the right to violate them like that. They found that they needed more for victims. So now if a victim comes forward and reports, they can move to a different unit. If they're not comfortable anymore in that unit, if they're finding that the unit is picking sides and they're just not comfortable, the Army will give them the opportunity to move to a different unit. The Army will give them a special victims counsel to talk to so that they can ask all the legal questions they want to this legal counselor. The Army will submit them for what we call a line of duty, which is kind of like workman's comp. So a line of duty says you were injured while you were in the Army and we're going to take care of you for the rest of your life. So the Army leads the way. The Army is the first organization that I have ever been in that will take care of victims and encourages victims to report, because a lot of places, you know, it's hard to deal with. And if you don't know how to deal with it, then you might not even think that you need this program in place. but it happens a lot. And I'll be happy when they start implementing programs into schools. That's where we need it.